So after the success of Alien, uh, a sequel couldn't be far behind. Well, it took a while until 1986 when they released Aliens. And this is one of the great examples of how to pursue a sequel to a film, is to look for ways to ask or answer the question, rather, what's the next story to tell, and look for ways to make your sequel film, for all intents and purposes, stand on its own. It can never fully do it because it will always be dependent on the first one that begins the narrative and the story. But here, this is probably one of the most successful, narratively speaking, for a sequel. And to put it simply, it's even, I think it was one of the blurbs in the poster, this time it's war, you know. And that's the deal. There's still elements of horror, and, you know, it's monsters and, you know, all that, and scary scenes and what have you. But the original Alien is a full-on horror movie in space, whereas Aliens is a war movie. Of course, you have your space marines and all that, but all the aspects of military life and stuff is, you know, all the templates of that are played out here in this futuristic sci-fi world and all that sort of thing. But basically, it's very recognizable for quite a few different takes on, you know, military-themed stories. And such is the case what happens here. So right off the bat, what would be the story? Well, did Ripley make it? I mean, we see her put herself in, and her and Jones the cat, into deep sleep in the hopes that they'll be picked up. And just by her guessing, she figured in a couple of months I should be within range, and with luck somebody will pick me up. Well, her plan does work, but it took a lot longer than she anticipated. So well over 50 years she floated around in space until a salvage crew finds her. They're out scavenging and whatnot, apparently, through the different abandoned space junk that's floating around, and they come across this shuttle, and well, let's check this out. And then lo and behold, there's someone in it. So it's Ripley and Jones the cat, of course. And it's a really good setup. It's all very, very well photographed and everything with the different machines, a lot of which was already in James Cameron, now taking over from Ridley Scott here. And of course, you would see a lot of those aspects in his two Terminator films and all that. But nevertheless, it's a kind of a creepy opening, which is appropriate for the atmosphere of an alien film. And the setup of the set for the shuttle is pretty much in keeping with where it's left. You still see her harpoon gun stuck in the door that the, you know, sort of robotic machine is cutting through for them to explore it, and all that sort of thing. So she's found, she's brought back. We have a space station in orbit around Earth, and there she is now. Of course, you don't realize it's a dream sequence, but it's still giving you the information that is true for what's happened to her. She doesn't recognize the station and everything because it's over 50 years later. You know, everything's different and newer and whatnot. And of course, it's a dream sequence in that the realization of what she's lost hits her, and it goes into this nightmare that she has a chest burster inside her and that sort of thing. And it plays out. She's immediately introduced to one of the more memorable characters in Paul Reiser's character of Burke, who is just a piece of crap. Just a slimy, backstabbing little bastard, and he plays it perfectly well. It goes out of his way to cozy up to you and everything like that, because when you're close to someone, it's easier to put the knife in the back, you know. And he performs this role very well. There's quite a few standout. Bill Paxton, of course, that comes across here playing their roles in it. Now, Deleted scenes and whatnot, I think, shouldn't have been taken out. But of course, for runtime and whatnot, the theatrical cut misses a lot. But you get the more of the details about Ripley had a daughter, but she never came home. Her daughter lived out her life and died of old age, never knowing what became of her mother. And of course, this is all just compounding the devastation for Ripley. The company wants an explanation for what happened to their very expensive, oil, or what I guess mineral oil. I can't even remember what they were hauling. Freighter that they had in the Nostromo. And we were sent to this planet to investigate this signal, and it turned out to be an alien spacecraft, and then this monster got on board and killed us all, except for me. And it bled acid for blood and and all this stuff, and they're like, and it's you can take from that meeting that not everybody in the company was aware of the true goal and plan. That was rather kept secret, and only a few would know. And I'm assuming Burke is one who did know, as he is the main villain of the film, as opposed to Ash the android was in the previous one. So that's the setup, and but of course it's just her and the cat, so there's really no way for her to bolster her story. They are able to confirm that yes, they were diverted to this planet and all that, and in that they revealed that, oh, we've already colonized it and they've been there for 20 years, it's fine. And she's like, oh my god. Because the ship is still there, the alien ship, and the eggs are there, so of course the opportunity for more to happen with those is right there. And of course, with the other deleted scenes, you do get a view of young Newt's family. You meet them, you see the colony in the base, and as it was before it was destroyed and by certainly taken down a peg by the aliens and all of that. And of course, what happens? Well, her parents go looking and discover the ancient alien ship, and oh man, how cool! And they investigate it, and daddy gets grabbed by a face hugger, and there you go. And you know what happens. You can figure it out. What happens in the base, so you don't see Newt until Ripley and crew find her. And so the rest of it is, you get more of an explanation of why Ripley would go back, and playing into the war theme for herself is she keeps suffering these terrible nightmares. She's, terribly traumatized by the events of the previous movie. All, makes sense, works out. And she's asked to go after they get word they've lost contact with the colony. And of course, Bert knows. And so, they must have found it. Of course, that's the deal. He wants to get the sample of the aliens and all that. And he's still chasing that same mission that they originally sent the Nostromo for. And so he wants to recruit her for a rescue mission to go there because of her knowledge of the creatures and all this sort of thing. And of course, she turns him down, says, you're nuts, I'm not going back there. And then, but she has another nightmare and she can't get sleep and all that. Plus, there's an offer on the table for her to get her old job back. She's pretty much been disgraced and booted out, and she's doing menial labor work at, loading docks or what have you. But this is also significant because it shows he's picked up some new skills that will play out in the film. And it's actually Burke who says, going back and facing this, I think, is the best thing for you. And he despite him being the villain, it's right. He's right. It's a way for her to recover the damage that was done to her psyche over the previous movie. So she agrees, goes with the Marines, and then you get you're introduced through the characters and all that. The main players, there's plenty in the background who are doomed to die. But you get the standard templates of soldiers, Marines here, and that sort of thing, and they're all and it's important because they've been through rescue missions overall, and they're all very cocky. They're heavily trained, and they're pretty sure of themselves. And it's a great setup for how, as Bill Paxton's character will put it, they get their asses handed to them by the alien monsters. So but it's an important thing, I think. We started rewatching and revisiting Alien after seeing Alien Romulus, and one of the weaknesses of Alien Romulus, there's really only two characters of significance there: the android and the girl he's supposed to protect. And he's really the best part about it. The actor does a very good performance of that character. The rest, there just wasn't enough to them. Granted, there were characters introduced in here that are doomed to die, but you get to know them, so where you have some affection or they matter. They become significant to the overall story, even though it's quite a few. You're down to really only Newt, Ripley, and Michael Bihn's character Hicks, I believe, survives. And of course, Bishop, he's an android. But even so, they played their roles, and you got to know them a little. You understood them at some point. Whereas the others, there wasn't a whole lot given there. You had the pregnant girl, you had the ex-boyfriend, and you had the other girl who's there to just get the face hugger, which seems to impregnate them very fast as opposed to how long it took in the original films. But nevertheless, that's all there was. Here, it's very well done in how they play that out. And then, so they go in, they see the devastation of the base, they find Newt, she's traumatized, she doesn't speak well. But the element that's lost in that, it's not emphasized enough that Ripley lost her daughter because of the time. She was stuck in space. Now there's this new girl, and both of them are going through the same thing. The girl has witnessed this devastation by these monsters, but at the same time, she's lost her mother, her parents, her family, all that. And here's Ripley. She's lost her daughter. She's lost her sense of self due to the trauma that she suffered from the same problem, the monsters. And they come together. And it's an overall story of Ripley becomes the new mother to this girl. And this gives her a whole new purpose beyond just, wanting to kill these monsters, out of revenge and whatnot. But now her motherly instincts have kicked in. She's still wanting to fill that void, and this girl needs a mother, and there you go. And that's what compels the story there between the two of them. And it comes to a great conclusion at the end when she saves the girl, and of course the girl calls her mommy. It's a powerful scene in it, but it's you can see that happening there as they come together. And as for the rest of it, it's the battle, but the edge is on the aliens. They've taken this territory and it's theirs, and they just keep throwing themselves at the Marines, despite how many bullets they shower them with. It doesn't seem to matter. And of course, we learn more about them. They're a hive. They begin to suspect, where are these eggs coming from and all that. It can't just all be the same ones that were in the ship and all that. They've got a queen, and they're a hive species, and so they all serve their queen, and they're there to protect her progeny and whatnot. And so it expands more on the creatures themselves in this story. And so the rest of it is the battle, of course, but it's also the horror of it. So you've got a combination of the genres, but then again, I suppose you could make a good argument that all war movies are horror movies in their own right. There's different things. There's the relationship between her and the android, or the lack thereof, because she's got a definite distrust of them. But then he's the opposite of Ash. He's very heroic. He does very well, much to his own detriment, as he gets ripped in half by the queen and all of that. But then there's that other aspect of, you have two mothers fighting one another as Ripley burns all of her children, pisses off the queen, chases her and so on and so forth. You had the attempted murder that Burke does, and Burke, just how crappy a person he is he Boy, you know, I'm really disappointed in you guys when they all this stuff. And, you know, after they've all gotten wiped out and stuff, and they're saying, "Hey, look, let's just escape and nuke the whole place. We'll make sure, you know, they're killed." And he says, "Hey, come on, this is an expensive facility and all that." There's also the inclination, telltale signs of a budding romance between Hicks and Ripley. The three of them, with those two and Newt, obviously could form a little family there. That's all nice and cute and sweet. And their pet android, he gets to be the dog. It would be great, you know. So there's a rollicking adventure into it. They're figuring this out and how to survive, how to escape. And lo and behold, they manage to do it, not without severe damage. And then there's the battle between the two mothers again, as Ripley demonstrates that she knows how to use the loader machine, where she can meet the alien on equal footing with it to basically hand-to-hand combat between them, and ultimately does. The one weakness in it is at the end, once again, well, you know, I'm going to throw her ass out the airlock and she could burn up in the atmosphere. The other aliens, of course, have all been nuked. That worked out. But as she does this, she grabs a hold of the ladder that's on the side of the chamber that leads to the airlock, and she just wraps her arm around it and holds on for dear life. The suction that would have been created by opening the airlock, she could not have done that. I don't even know. I mean, I guess if they had fixed her with some sort of belt or apparatus, she could have held on. It was something like that, maybe. But the suction would have just ripped her arm in two, and she would have gone out with the alien. So it's right there. It's like, damn it, because the movie's so good otherwise. But the movie is so good that I just got to forgive that, you know. And, you know, good enough. And then, of course, you have the tear-jerking scene of where Newt calls her mommy. And it's sweet, it's good, and it's a great conclusion to the narrative set there. And so they're all set to take their naps in deep space and head back for home. And the Sulaco is the ship they have, which very much resembles a gun in space, which is appropriate for a military craft. But that's how it ends. The only thing to do to follow that up is answer what's the other story to tell, which sadly they really don't do. And with such great setup for these characters to have survived that, and what happens in the next one really grinds my gears. But best thing to do is there are only 2 Alien films, and both very strong in their own right, and a great to watch through and through. And probably for the best, just say, yeah, Ripley deserved her happy ending, and she got it. You know, as hopefully she can raise Newt, marries Hicks, and everything's great, and maybe even Bishop hangs around to do chores around the house, you know. But the other sequels really never reach the level that they reached with these 2 films. So there you go. Aliens, one of the all-time greats.